Hey, since some of you guys had to take off for other commitments before we ended the class, and there was a few elements we touched on after you guys left, I thought what I'd do is make this little quick video to go over them. You might recall when, just briefly here, that when we started the class, what we talked about was starting a project and then bringing in some photos. We talked about these little grow handles on the corners that allow you to make the photo bigger or smaller. We also talked about these rotation arrows that, if you grab them, can set the rotation of the photo wherever you want. Actually, can set the rotation of an object or grow an object. All objects in ActionScrap can do that. We also talked about this little arrow or circular arrow icon up here, and what that does is gives you the ability to set a specific angle, like for instance 90 degrees counterclockwise or back to 0, which I use quite a bit. On top of that, we talked about cropping. You might remember this picture here. What I did was there are several ways to do a crop. What a crop is just cuts a picture, to however you want it. It just takes, if you're not familiar with that term, it just enables you to pick out a section of the picture and leave everything else off. So like in this case, we got a bunch of background here that maybe we don't want. So to crop it, there's several ways to do it. Number one is you can do a right click on the picture, and that brings up this crop grid that you can set sort of anywhere you want and size it to anywhere you want. And if you was then to hit crop, you'd find out, okay, there, I just cropped it. There's other ways to do it up here under this crop rectangle, where you could do a random aspect crop, which is what we just did, or you could do it in any number of different ways, that is to match the background or to match a previous object or whatever. But for now, let's just leave that at there. So on top of this, then we talked about over here a thing called the stack. Now you can see right now that Sarah's picture came in first, and this other picture with Sharon and I came in a little later. So it came in second when I loaded them. So it is on the top. Whatever is the last object in becomes the top object. It doesn't have to stay that way, of course, as you might recall. We took our, with these arrows over here, we can move things up and down in the stack. The single arrow moves it one place, the double arrow moves it all the way from wherever it is to the top, for instance, or all the way to the bottom. The single down arrow, of course, moves it down one. So let's take this as an example. We'll take this and we'll move it down one click. So there it is. Now you can see the Sarah lies on the top, and the other picture is on the bottom. So also note that this little green rectangle box here that is surrounding that icon, that tells you which element is highlighted. So if you click here, anywhere else, by the way, you can unclick or unselect these things just by clicking anywhere. So if this object is selected, if I click on another object, it'll be unselected and that one will be selected. If I click somewhere else, anywhere else on the layout that there isn't an object, then nothing is selected. Okay, so the green box goes away. But for now, let's go over here and talk a little bit more about what you can do over here. The stack's very important, by the way, because a lot of times when you're building collages, you want something to be on the top, and then you say, oh, gee, that's not the one I want on top. Well, no problem. Just go ahead and put this one back on top. So you can move them around however you want, and you can stack them up. It's almost like having printed pictures sitting on your tabletop, and you say, well, let's put this one underneath, or oh, gee, I didn't want it underneath, I wanted it on top. So you move it, and sure enough, it's on the top. All right, so now the other things over here that's important to know is this lock boxes. Notice this little lock icon that's alongside of Sarah's thumbnail. If I lock her by clicking on that lock, now I can't do anything to it. She's locked. I mean, I can still move this one around, but I can't move her up or down the stack. I can't do anything. I can't move her. I can't grow it. I can't crop it. I can't do anything. It's not that way forever, of course. If I unlock her, well, now she's back to life and I can do anything I want. The benefit of a lock, by the way, is that once you get things established and you say, hey, I got everything pretty much where I want, but I'm still moving a few objects around, You don't want to inadvertently move the stuff you already have where you'd like it to be, so you lock it, and then it'll just stay there. So it's a good idea to do. The other thing is that you can do is notice these little buttons out here on the side, these little check boxes. If they're lit up, that means that the picture is visible. If you click on it, she goes away. And when in so going away, you can't do anything. You can't even see where it is. You can't move it. You can't do anything to it. It's not gone forever, of course. If you just re-click the button, she comes back and you can do anything you want. All right, so those are pretty much the things we talked about with the stack over here, the stack that defines where pictures are top to bottom or overlaying each other and whether they're locked and whether they're visible. All right, so beyond that, we then discussed the idea of shadowing. Shadows give the picture or give your or lay out some dimension. So, for instance, if we go in here with Sarah selected and we say, hey, let's go over here and give her a shadow depth of, say, 5 or 6. And we'll just give it a density of around 140, 150, somewhere in there. And we say, what's that do? Well, that gives a shadow to her. And that shadow then gives the picture some sort of dimension that it didn't have otherwise. That is, you can get the impression that it's actually lifted off of the page. This is very, very helpful when you're putting a page together that has a lot of activity on it. Because then it doesn't have the flat appearance any longer. It gives it a dimensional appearance. And the shadow can be bigger. For instance, if we said, hey, I want to take this shadow up to 10 and let's even increase its density more. There, now she stands off a little more. All right, so that's the whole deal with shadows. Kind of interesting, though, is that once you've selected her, now you can go select this picture and go up here where it says match to previous. And when you match to previous, guess what? It makes the same shadow on that one. So now you have both pictures standing off. You don't necessarily want to maybe have the same standoff, but that's something we can do. You can stand them off that way. And the shadow goes with it no matter where it goes and maintains that dimension or that dimensional appearance. The final thing we talked about as far as enhancing the image was he talked about putting a frame on it. And a frame is just sort of a border. Notice as I move this slider up here, you notice that there's a little growing out of a border. Now I had previously selected this kind of a bluish border. You don't have to have that, but when you do it, you can see the border now also has the shadow. So, you know, it keeps the dimensional thing and adds the border to it. If you didn't like that particular color, you could go in here and change the color, say to some sort of a maroon or something like that, and you would have that. All right. Similar to the shadows as far as placing it around on other objects, if you select this one and then you select this object and you tell it to match to previous, they'll both have that border and they'll both be the same size. All right. So, and you can change the size and the color of the border anytime you want. The other thing we did discuss was aligning objects. I use this quite a bit. If you want to have objects aligned top to bottom, what you do is you say, hey, I want this one to be the master. I want everything to go to where it is. And now I'll pick this object and say, align it. And I just, by this arrow up here on the upper left, there's these 4 arrows. This would have aligned it right to left, or I'm sorry, to the left side. This would have aligned it to the top. This would have aligned it to the right. This would have aligned it to the bottom. So I could have aligned it to the bottom simply by doing that. And now it would align bottom-wise or back to the top. All right, it's going to go wherever the master one that I picked was. The master being the last one that I picked. All right, so there you go. So that's how we move those around. And that's a pretty cool thing to do. Also, you can size things exactly. I mean, if you wanted these things to be the same height, you say, well, okay, I could maybe get them close, but the simplest way to do is just use this up-down match. This will match to the height of the previous. So I tell it, hey, here's the object I want to match to. Let's match to that. And there it is. It now matches. And you can see that now these things are matched top to bottom or the tops match, and actually the bottoms match because they happen to be the same height. So that was the discussion of how you move those around. Finally, we talked about changing the background a bit. Remember, we brought this in just as a white background, not anything special about it. But if you go under the Layers menu and you come down here to Change Background, that pops up our color box that is the same color box that we use for any other coloring. But we can change things by, let's say we wanted to make this thing have kind of a rose sort of a color. All right, so we tell it OK. And sure enough, what's going to happen is it changes the background to this rose color. Now, beyond that, we did discuss that when you change the background, you can also give it a texture. And texturing makes for a really interesting background because it gives the overall picture something. Well, you'll see it in just a second when I do this. Let's go to the standard textures. And for now, I'll just pick up this one here at the top and apply it. All right, so when it applies, you're going to see that now we have that as our background. So as you can see, we're getting the whole overall layout's getting to be a lot more interesting, right? We've added shadows, we've added borders to the pictures, we've added the background now that gives it a kind of a appeal. And if you wanted, of course, you can offset these pictures like so, however you want to do it. And if you had some text that you wanted to add up here at the top, we could do that. So I'm going to leave this here now for now. But I think this covers pretty much all the stuff that we went over in the class after some of you guys had to take off. And I just wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to mess around with this before our next class if you'd like to. And I guess for now, that's about all I had to say. So this is Dave, and I'll see you next Thursday. All right, bye-bye.